Hey guys, story time. Don't mind me. I'm working on some coffee this morning, and story time. So about 10 weeks ago, so it's April 24th or April 16th, February 4th. I took a fall, and it was a kind of fall that I think trail runners and mountain bikers and skiers and snowboarders this is the kind of fall that if we're engaging in any of this stuff, this happens all the time, right? I was on a little kick scooter, little razor style trick scooter, and tactical error. I was riding a scooter that's made for tricks in like nice parks with wood decking or concrete without without cracks, without gaps. And well, I was riding in front of my house and front wheel, small front wheel, hard plastic, hit a crack, tossed me over the front wheel, and I landed on my right side. Skinned up my knee, hurt my shoulder a lot. So this this is where there's an important point here to this story, which is this is the kind of fall that can happen to any one of us at any time. And if we ski, snowboard, mountain bike, run, hike, the likelihood of this just goes up, right? Because we're doing things where we're on unstable ground, we're on uneven terrain. Skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, road biking, the ground, we can be moving pretty quick. So I fell. It hurt. It was a Sunday afternoon. I took some Advil, put a heating pad on it. A couple days later, managed to get some time with one of my friends who's a physical therapist, and she said, probably not rotator cuff, probably labrum, maybe bicep. Let's get you with an MRI. So I go see a orthopedic surgeon a few days later. He says, probably not rotator cuff, probably labrum, maybe bicep anchor. Let's get an MRI. We got it scheduled. A couple days later, I actually saw another friend of mine who's a PT, and guess what she said? Probably not rotator cuff, probably labrum, maybe bicep. Here's some PT work you can do for it. Well, about a week after that, MRI report. I get the MRI report comes back. Guess what it said? Labrum is fine, bicep anchor is fine, rotator cuff, complete tear of one tendon, and a partial tear of another one. So let's just pause here for a moment and consider that three professionals who I have a lot of respect for, and I don't have any less respect for any of these people, either of the PTs or the ortho, because they were just wrong, right? They took a guess, they took a hypothesis, and they were wrong, and I shouldn't have had, by all accounts, it was surprising that there was a rotator cuff tear. However, then if we consider the fact that the other thing the MRI report showed was that there was a significant bone spur growing off of the end of the acromion, which comes out and kind of protrudes out over the shoulder. And we think that acromion, that spur, that bone growth on the acromion was actually big enough that it probably had a role to play in tearing, in causing the tear, causing an abrasion on the rotator cuff muscles, their tendons that got torn. So totally surprising. And again, no loss of respect for either the PTs or the ortho. They're all great. I will continue to send clients to all of them. But there's a moment sometimes where we need imaging. And this is where imaging becomes really important. But also, let's just point out that imaging isn't everything. This silly data point that gets tossed around, if we took 100 people and we got MRIs of everyone's back, lots and lots of people would have some things happening in their back, a disc bulge, some degenerative disc disease, some misalignments, and they'd be pain-free. They'd be fine. And every once in a while you find someone who's got a back that's painful, and there's nothing that shows up in the imaging as an explanation for it. So imaging isn't everything, but man, thank God I did the imaging, because that was what showed me what was going on. So now it's Tuesday. I am 3 weeks. Yeah, surgery was 3 weeks ago today. Lessons learned. This is really the point. Lessons learned. One, the stronger you go into an injury, the better off you are on the far side. There's just no way around this, right? There's just no disputing this. You can't argue that weaker is going to be better. And so, just a really easy example of this, I saw my ortho last Monday. I saw one of my PTs immediately thereafter. The PT was the first phase of rehab for this is some isometric work. So basically, it's just like get the muscles working a little bit without putting the arm into any risky positions. But the other part of the first phase of PT is passive range of motion work. Passive meaning that my PT will take my right arm and move it around. Well, I already have more than enough range. I already have the range of motion required to get out of phase one. Why? Because I went into the injury with this much range of motion. And even when injured, I sought out the advice of my PTs, and it was, what can I do safely? And I did that. I kept doing some work on it. It certainly wasn't pressing heavy, because that would have been silly. But I didn't back off, right? I didn't stop moving the arm. As soon as I was allowed to be out of a sling, I was out of a sling, and like using it gently, like paying attention to what the PT has said, what the ortho has told me, and I know what is okay and what's not okay, and I do as much as I can of the stuff that's okay. This is how you come back from an injury well and quickly. And I want you to know maybe three main things. Lesson number one is injuries are going to happen. The stronger you go into it, the better off you're going to be on the far side. I know what it's like to train hard. I don't have to start strength training after this. I've already been doing it. I know enough of the anatomy, and yeah, part of it is because of my job, but it's also because I've paid attention, and so I know enough of the anatomy to be able to make sense of what's good and what's not going to be good for the shoulder in varying phases of recovery. The second big thing is use your network, right? And I'll tell you, your network of people that you should have kind of available. Like, you shouldn't need to have an ortho, right? Like, I didn't have an ortho on speed dial when I got hurt. I asked around for recommendations, and I took one of the recommendations and met the guy and was like, yeah, cool. I like you. I trust you. You're helping me understand the anatomy. This is great. Let's do this. But like, definitely you should have a PT who is your go-to, right? And if you are working with a cash pay PT, fully expected that you can get their phone number and text them and work with them and just, ask them questions. But even if you're going to a clinic, an insurance-based clinic, find a PT who will give you their number and doesn't mind if you text them once in a while. The amount of information, the amount of learning and support that you can get from that kind of a relationship is tremendous. And the last one is and the last person on your side is have a strength person, right? Like, have someone who does what a personal trainer does, or like a movement coach. I mean, you don't want the PT you don't want the personal trainer at Vasa who's like 22 and has visible abs because they're 22. You don't want that person. That's not who I'm talking about. But having someone who understands movement, who understands anatomy, who you feel safe with, who you connect well with, have that person in your life. And yes, like, sales pitch, maybe, I don't know. Like, I aim to be that person for all of my clients. And that's the aim for our coaching staff, is that we're that for our clients. And there's other people, there's plenty of people who in this world who are as good as I am and better and maybe not quite so good. It's not about you being with me. It's just about you having someone who's in your corner that you can text. That goes a really long way. And the third big lesson from this that I want you to take away is, and this has been a realization for me in the last few days, that right after my surgery, I had a lot of regret about the surgery because I was in way more pain after the surgery than I was before. Before, I would occasionally take an Advil. Afterwards, I'm taking Percocet and Advil and more acetaminophen. And man, I was not all at once. I know I wasn't taking that much acetaminophen, I promise, in case you're worried about my liver. But like, yeah, I was really regretful for a couple of days. And the regret came and went. And it was mostly when the pain was really bad. And then I take a Percocet to trim it down and make it manageable. But man, my relationship with my body got way worse right after the surgery. Because and it still kind of is. Like, I viewed my right shoulder as a limiting factor. Today going into school, my kid asked for a ride. My 3.5-year-old son wanted a ride on my shoulder. And I had a coffee and I had my bag and I had his backpack. And I shouldn't carry that much stuff in my right hand right now. So I'm like, dude, sorry. Give me a minute. Let's get inside. Let me put some stuff down and then I can give you a ride. And then I did. And he's great and that's fine. He doesn't understand, but he knows that there's limits. And he also knows that I think he knows I'm doing my best. But man, it's hard sometimes to remember that this is a body that I'm going to be in for several more decades. And I want it to work well. I want to be able to play with my kid and run and ski and hike and fly kites and ride a skateboard. All of this stuff matters to me. And the only way to have that capacity is to ensure that this shoulder isn't a limiting factor, which means it is a limiting factor for now. And coming to terms with it and letting that be. The one last piece here is I just want to make a plug for therapy. I want to make a plug for therapy, legitimately. Probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I heard on Peter Attia's podcast, he was interviewing a DBT practitioner, and Peter shared that DBT was the style of therapy, the model of therapy that he'd been in for some length of time. And DBT stands for dialectic behavioral therapy. It is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. So kind of talk therapy. But what DBT brings in is a big aspect of mindfulness and also a really large skill set, right? There's a toolbox of skills that DBT practitioners teach. And DBT, as it's supposed to be executed, DBT as it was intended and designed, and the way that I went through it is actually two main pieces. Piece one is individual therapy. For me, it was weekly, and also skills training, which was also weekly. And so I spent about 9 months in the skills training component. It was a weekly Zoom call. Sometimes we got together, and every week there was a skill that we were practicing and working on, and then debriefing in the next session. And I mean, these are skills some of them are skills for reducing our response to really stressful situations. Some of the skills are about avoiding stressful situations. Some of them are about communicating our needs. One of them that has been very, very important for me is, and it's actually what's meant by dialectic, is this idea that two things can be true at the same time. I am not happy about my shoulder. I am not happy that I'm hurt. I'm not happy that I had to have surgery. I'm not happy that I'm 2 or 3 months away at least from being able to ride a bike. I'm not happy that I'm at least probably 2 months away from any sort of strength training with my right side. But I can still be okay with the fact that those are the conditions, right? I want it to be different, but I can also accept it. And I can be looking forward to the time that I get to strength train and build strength and be ready to mountain bike later in the summer. I can be looking forward to that while also making the most of the time that I have now and really learning everything that I can about this process of healing. Because there's a truth to this, that the if you ever tear your rotator cuff and you want to find a strength coach to help you rehab after it, if you can find someone who's torn their rotator cuff, they've probably got a leg up, right? They probably know some stuff that other people don't know. No guarantee, but like it's a reasonable idea. Oh, the other thing that I'm really looking for, I had my hair braided into cornrows because going into surgery, I knew I wasn't going to be able to lift my arm over my head, which I cannot lift my right arm anywhere near I can barely get my right arm to my ear, or my hand rather. And to do that, I'm bringing my ear all the way down. So I can't I can't do anything with my hair. So I had my hair put into cornrows. I am really excited to have my hair out of cornrows. I'm enjoying it. It actually is really nice, and it's nice that it's so easy. But I also want to brush my hair out and wash my scalp. These are things that I didn't realize how much I take for granted. All right, gonna wrap it up there. Thank you for hanging in, and more to come on this. But please let me know if there are questions that you have, or if there's pieces of this that are especially interesting, whether it's around the therapy, whether it's around the shoulder or therapy, or just strength training in the realm of endurance athletes. This is what I do. And I've been saying it for a long time that as endurance athletes, I truly believe that every endurance athlete should strength train, but why they should do it is different from person to person. The people that train with us here 2 or 3 days a week, I think they need to keep doing it, right? They're not weak, they're not unstable. For them right now, it's about building durability and improving their longevity so they can do these things for years and years and years. For other people, where someone is unstable or notably weak, strength training actually becomes the basis for performance, for improving run performance, for improving your cycling performance. But sometimes it's literally just about durability. And there were conditions in my right shoulder that tendon was probably a little bit frayed already, and that's why the fall did it. That's what happened. And there's no way I could have known that would happen. I'm really lucky it happened 10 feet in front of my house instead of out in Park City on a mountain bike ride by myself. I'd have to walk down and drive home. Man, so much better that it was where it was. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But at the same time, this kind of stuff happens. And so we should consider, how do we make ourselves as durable and as resilient as possible so that we can truly be anti-fragile and come back as well, as strong, as quickly, and as capably as possible. That's the mission. That's my mission. If it's your mission, let me know.